On this week's episode of Chasing the Natty, Jared and I look ahead to Week 9 in our preview, where we will discuss big game matchups and possible high-scoring games. All this and more on Chasing the Natty.
Look downfield and Circus, one-handed catch is made. Jones goes to the end zone. Oh, what a catch! Devontae Smith. Touchdown, Alabama. Watch out for Mr. Robinson. This kid is going to be special and is already flashing.
This is Chasing the Natty, a college football fantasy podcast.
All right. Welcome back to Chasing the Natty, a college football fantasy podcast. As you all know, I am your host, Xavier Hood at CFF_Xavier on Twitter. And alongside me, I have my co-host at CFF_Jared, Jared Palmgren. Jared, how are you doing today?
Hey, for a moment there, I thought you were going to make my only identity being my Twitter handle, and I thought I was about to get onto you for that, but no.
Nah.
Day's going pretty good. I am getting ready here to fix myself some chicken cordon bleu. So it's not often that I make a pretty decent meal for myself, but I felt like whipping something up tonight. Just had a pretty good day overall. It turns out I got absolutely destroyed in fantasy basketball this first week, which I don't really know what I'm doing totally. So that's fine. It happens.
Yeah, it's a long season for basketball, but we're not a basketball podcast. We are a college fantasy football podcast. So we have to discuss a lot. Week 8 has come and gone, and we're on the Week 9. We have some big games, especially out there in the Big Ten.
Oh, some massive games this weekend.
So I guess, we should just jump right in.
We'll jump right in right after I do my usual spiel. You guys who are listening know what I'm about to say. Make sure you're following us on all of our platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell. Like the videos. Comment down below. Even if you just are telling us, hey, you guys are doing a good job. Or Xavier, your beard is looking a little scruffy today. Or Jared, your hair looks greasy today. Just comment something, y'all. Those engagements are huge in terms of getting our videos out to people who might want to watch them. And I challenge everybody out there. Find one person in the CFF community that you maybe play a league in or something like that. Just share our stuff with just one person, and let's see if we can grow our audience doubly that way. So we got a lot of good stuff. We just got done with the Ankle Biters podcast with Farnsworth and Owens. We did that last night. So if you're listening to this now, that is already probably out. So make sure you go listen to that. Xavier and I had a blast on that one. We'd love to go back on to their show anytime. And we'll probably have them on this show at one point once we get things kind of settled out and a guest schedule going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we could.
I guess we can move on to our helmet games of the week.
Perfect.
First game we have Michigan State rivalry. It's in East Lansing, so it's definitely Michigan State's having a good year. I'll let you go first and talk about this game, Jared. Just wanted to mention that it was in Michigan State for all those people that are tuned in for this game.
Yeah, so here's our only top 10 matchup of the weekend. We got really spoiled early on with some of those weekends having multiple top 10 matchups. But even still, this is what college football is all about. Two teams having, let's be honest, much better years than I think anybody was expecting them to have. I think most everybody was off of the Michigan Harbaugh train by this point after it was probably a good 3 or 4 years in a row where it seemed like they were getting hyped up every offseason only to just disappoint. And not disappoint in the sense of like, oh, they didn't win a national title like Georgia is compared to. No, it's like they really disappointed. Like Michigan ended some seasons with 4 or 5 losses. And everybody was just expecting them, especially after last year. People were just like, all right, this is probably Harbaugh's last year in Ann Arbor. They're probably not going to do very well. But here they are. They have a new offense, and I'd say, well, not necessarily new, but they have a better offense than they've had in past years. And it's not the offense I think a lot of people were expecting. A lot of people were kind of hoping for like a shift more to the pass. But in the end, it looks like Harbaugh and Josh Gaddis really just at the end of the day said, hey, we got 2 great running backs here, 3 if you want to count Donovan Edwards. We got a whole like stable of backs here. Let's just run it down people's throat and let's win that way. And it's worked very well for them so far. A couple close calls here and there. The game against Rutgers definitely wasn't their best game by any stretch of the imagination, but pretty much everybody else, they've handled their business. So Michigan's doing well. Michigan State is really the one I think surprised most people. I think their over/under win total for this year was 4.5. Well, they're at 7-0 right now. That tells you people's expectations compared to now. So, like I said, they're having a magical year, and now they get this rivalry in East Lansing. They get to host Michigan for this rivalry. I think it's gonna be huge for Michigan State. I think it's big for Michigan, but I think it's a bigger game for Michigan State. I saw a tweet from somebody. It wasn't like it was just really just somebody put down their thoughts about this game, and they said that for Michigan, this isn't their biggest rivalry game of the year. That's against Ohio State. For Michigan State, this is the biggest rivalry of their year. Like they play Ohio State too, but if they could go 1-11 every year, but that one win is against Michigan, Michigan State fans are happy. That's all they need to care about. So I think there's going to be an edge here towards Michigan State. I think that they're going to come into this game hyped up. I think Michigan knows they need to handle their business here. I don't think by any means they're going to overlook Michigan State here, but I think a lot of people are kind of counting out Michigan State because they've had too many kind of closer wins compared to Michigan. I might be leaning a little bit towards Michigan State here, and Xavier, I've kind of been talking a while, so I'll let you say your piece on this game, and then I'll kind of mention why I might be leaning that way.
Well, first things first, I want to give credit to, I saw the tweet as well. I think it's Brandon Champion, a big Michigan State fan. I've seen him on the timeline on Twitter a lot talking about Michigan State. Great college football, just college football in general, just interactions with him. But in terms of this game, I understand all your points, and I agree with them all wholeheartedly. I think Michigan has definitely looked revitalized in terms of like recent years and what Harbaugh has done and what we've seen. I would caveat to say that, man, how would Xavier Worthy would look in this Michigan offense? Like, I don't know, like if Cade McNamara would like be able to find him the ball like he is at Texas, or if Xavier Worthy is just that talented to where this Michigan team would actually be a legit threat to a lot of programs. But it's just the thought just to have that, knowing that he was there on campus for in the spring and then just magically leaves.
I think there's a reason why he left.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a reason, but I mean, just to have a little fantasy in my head of like what could have been. But I think he's doing great at Texas going forward in the future. True freshman, having a great wide receiver campaign. But let's get back to this Michigan State. It's a tough game to call. I'm gonna give it out right now. I think I'm leaning a lot more towards Michigan. And it's nothing against Michigan State. I was one of the biggest Kenneth Walker supporters.
I was about to say, you've been hyping up Michigan State all year, man.
I have. I've loved what I've seen from them, especially when I saw the addition of Kenneth Walker. I just, there were early reports back in the spring that Kenneth Walker looked great in camp and that he could be that running back that usurps 1,000 yards rushing. And I think he's already done it by now. So he's like maybe 20 yards shy. And it's just been a magical season for him. He's one of the Heisman candidates, probably like top 10 at this point. But if we're looking at, Michigan State, it just in those close games, especially against Indiana and against, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, Rutgers, if they played them maybe a week or two ago.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, they didn't look that great. Kenneth Walker basically got shut down, and Michigan has a great rush defense. And I've been saying this for a while now. As much as I don't like Harbaugh, that defense does look legit. They put out, players to play on Sundays on that D line. And Michigan State's going to have to force to throw in the ball. Now, luckily for Michigan State, they have receivers that can, catch the ball really well at a successful rate. But it all depends on Peyton Thorne because he has his ups and downs to where some days he'll look great and then some days he'll look very mediocre, and then it's going to have to come down to the wire. So I think for Michigan can grind it out. They have two great running backs, and then Cade McNamara has completed 63% of his passes so far. And, even though the passing game isn't all that great, you still have great playmakers, and I'll just highlight one. It's just been Cornelius Johnson. That's the name I keep on seeing every time on Saturdays for Michigan, and he just seems to consistently just find his way to catch those deep balls and get them in position. So it's going to be a hard fought game in terms of. I don't think, as I understand that Michigan, they've kind of like sunned Michigan State for the past few years, and because Michigan State's been down in the dumps. And Michigan State views this as a game that possibly turned the tide. but I think Michigan knows what they're having higher expectations now that they're 7-0 as well. So I think Harbaugh's going to go in, the team's going to go in, and they know what they need to do. And I think, with having that dual backfield of Corum and Haskins, it's going to wear down on Michigan State after some point to where you don't know which one's going to pop off.
Well, you're talking about wearing down Michigan State, and like I agree, there's probably a talent differential here between Michigan and Michigan State. I don't have the recruiting numbers off the top of my head, but even still, I would have to imagine Michigan's probably recruiting better than Michigan State year in and year out. But even still, that doesn't change the fact that Mel Tucker's brought in a ton of guys from the transfer portal that have been key contributors for them this year, so they got plenty of experience there regardless. But the other thing I think we're neglecting to mention here is the fact that Michigan State's coming off of a bye. Michigan's not. Now, I just looked it up, and Michigan's defense was only on the field for, let's see, 32 plus 23, 55 plays last week. So it's not like they were beaten and battered and were just out there the entire time and coming into this game tired as hell. I imagine they'll be somewhat rested for this game. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal into this game. But I do think that bye week for Michigan State was very significant. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of shocked the Big Ten allowed in a rivalry game such as this, especially right here in the middle of the year when all these teams are taking their bye weeks, for one team to be coming off of a bye and the other not to be. I know for Georgia, Florida, the SEC made it to where they both have the same bye week every year. Alabama, LSU have the same bye week every single year because neither team wants an advantage over the other. So I think this might actually come to play here for Michigan. Or Michigan State, excuse me. And again, it's not like we're looking at two teams where one team has playmakers, the other one is just looking to scrap together a victory. Michigan State, in my opinion, probably has more playmakers than Michigan does. It really just comes down to which do you trust more, Michigan State's offense or do you trust Michigan's defense? And while I think, again, like you said, Michigan's defense is good, I trust the dynamic ability of Michigan State to use the passing game and the running game, both in long plays and short plays for both ways of transporting the ball. I don't trust Michigan with that. Michigan, from what I've seen, is run, deep ball pass, run, deep ball pass. I've not really seen a true short passing game or even intermediate passing game from Michigan. So if Michigan State is able to take away that deep ball ability from Michigan and is able to hold them onto the ground, even if Michigan is somewhat successful on the ground, I think that puts Michigan State in a much better position to win this game. Throw in Kenneth Walker, all their playmakers feeding off of the crowd for this game. I'm again, call it gut feel and everything. I'm taking Michigan State to win this game. I think they handle business.
Yeah, I only mentioned I do agree the playmakers in terms of the wide receivers at Michigan State I think are outweigh Michigan, and I love Kenneth Walker. He's a great running back, Heisman finalist possibly, but it's all leading up to Peyton Thorne. We've seen his ups and downs, and we've seen how low he can get to, especially that Indiana game where I was like, you have these playmakers, hit him. Like Jalen Naylor is a speedster. Jalen Reed is a great guy. He can make plays, even punt returns and things like that. But I just didn't see it in these Big Ten games. So I don't know. You were beating up on Northwestern, who definitely is on a down year. And you have beating up on a lot of these easier opponents. But then I saw you against Nebraska. And I saw you against Indiana. And I saw you against Rutgers. And I'm like, all right now. I mean, I know Michigan also kind of struggled against Rutgers as well. But I think Michigan will be able to handle business and come in with probably just a little bit of a...
Michigan State didn't really struggle against Rutgers that much. They scored in the 30s against Rutgers.
Oh,
yeah. I'll look it up real quick. Yeah, you keep talking.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's just a gut feeling about Peyton Thorne in a big game like this. I just have to see it to believe it. But for now, I'll just go with Michigan for the safer option. I think in that Rutgers game, it was Kenneth Walker didn't do that well, if I'm not mistaken. No, he broke off for that big run. I think I remember.
Yeah, they scored 31-13 against Rutgers. So they actually had a better day against Rutgers. They were at Rutgers too. Yeah. I'll throw this out here, Xavier, because you're picking Michigan. I'm curious from a betting perspective. So the spread on this game is 4.5. So obviously, I would have taken Michigan State in the points because I think they're going to do the outright upset. Do you think this game's closer than 4.5 points, or do you think Michigan covers that?
I think it is going to be closer. I think the two kickers are definitely going to be in play. Oh God, I'm trying to forget. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Moody for Michigan.
Mm-hmm. And Coughlin for Michigan State.
Yeah. Moody has been just 100% for the entire year. I think McCoughlin maybe missed maybe once or twice, but Moody
Okay.
is automatic, one of the better kickers. Definitely going to help out. There's going to be a lot of drives where they're going to have to settle for field goals. So I think it's going to come down to where, like, all right, who's going to who's going to get the break in the end zone first, and then how they're going to respond. So, but I'm trusting Michigan on this.
Sounds good. We talked about that one long enough. Let's go ahead and move on to our next game as soon as I write this down. All right, move on to our next game. Another top 25 v top 25 matchup. We're going down to the SEC for this one. We got number 10 Ole Miss at number 18 Auburn. Auburn a 2.5 point favorite in this game. This is the 7 p.m. ESPN game. This is actually also one of our over-under games of the week, so we'll kind of talk more players. Specifically in this one, it's over under a 65 or 66.5. Xavier, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to it will be close if Matt Corral isn't healthy. That's the big thing about this game. If Matt Corral is 100% ready to go, no restraints, then Ole Miss will handle business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's not and he's limited, then that becomes the question of Auburn, possibly pulling off this game in this upset. With Bo Nix looking better and better each week, Jarquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby being a good backfield duo. And Bo Nix, not to say that he doesn't have any like dynamic receivers. He's had a few guys that step up, but they're nothing to rave about. Demetrius Robinson, transfer from Georgia, has been doing well, and I'm trying to think of the other guy's name that I had on the tip of my tongue. But they have at least one or two reliable guys. But I'm not raving about their passing game is just next level up to compared to Ole Miss. I think Matt Corral is able to put up points quick and in a hurry with his legs and his arm. So I think with Auburn, they're gonna have to slow him down somehow, some way, and it's tough with Matt Corral. I mean, he has the threats and weapons of if Dontario Drummond is healthy, if Braylon Sanders is healthy, that's going to be a big component of that game. If he's healthy and on the field, then I think Ole Miss should definitely run away with this. I think they'll definitely cover the spread. I think Auburn is still talented enough to put up points, but not as many points as Ole Miss.
So this whole game, the thing about Ole Miss, I think a lot of people miss. Everybody remembers the big passing plays for Ole Miss. They remember Matt Corral. They remember Dontario Drummond. They remember Braylon Sanders. They remember the fireworks. The key with Ole Miss is their running game. They're able to run the ball. They win this game. And I think it's as simple as that. That's the key for them. And like again, they're 6-1 so far. Their only loss to Alabama. That is the only game where one of their rushers did not hit over 50 yards. Every single other one, they were able to run the ball pretty much at will against their opponents. Even in their close games against Tennessee and Arkansas, the fact they were able to run the ball in that game, heck, Corral had 195 yards against Tennessee. That's what won them the game right there. So Auburn's D-line, I think, is going to be the biggest question mark here, and we've seen them get worn down by a good running game. We saw it against Georgia. We saw it against Penn State when they were able to run the ball on Auburn. So I think if Ole Miss can get that going, they can win the game here. Now, obviously, the other side of this is going to be, this is at Auburn. It's one of the toughest places to play in the country, not even just the SEC, in the country. This is a night game too. Some weird things happen in Auburn once the sun goes down in a home game for them. It's hard not to it's hard to pick against the environment here, but this is a tough one. I want you to make your pick first.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I mean, if Auburn, reduces the penalties on defense and Smoke Monday, I think that's his name,
Yes.
and secondary is not out of the game for a targeting penalty or giving up pass interference calls, it will be tough for to see what Dontario Drummond or Braylon Sanders or Ja'Cory Pearson or whoever steps up at that receiver spot in this game to have to go against in that matchup. But I think I'm gonna roll with Ole Miss in this one, even though it is at Auburn, and I know weird things happen with Auburn. But I just like with what Lane Kiffin has done for that offense at Ole Miss, I think it might be a little bit too much for first-year head coach at Auburn. So,
That is fair. I did kind of forget about the inexperience of Coach Harsin. Or not, I won't say inexperienced because he's been a head coach before at a pretty big program. He was at Boise State. That was still one of the weirdest transitions from last year. Boise State head coach going down to Auburn. God, this is a hard one to pick. I almost want to flip a coin and just have God call it for me. I'll roll Ole Miss with you as well.
Okay.
And I don't feel good about that pick, but I wouldn't feel good about picking Auburn either.
Yeah, no. You're
Regardless,
telling us to trust Bo Nix to win a game. I mean, he looks better each week, but
it's when you don't
ultimately,
trust Bo Nix is when he suddenly shows up.
exactly.
This is a one-score game either way, in my opinion. All right. With that, let's go ahead and move on to our. Typed that wrong. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our third helmet game. One more top 25 matchup here. We got number 20 Penn State at number 5 Ohio State. Ohio State favored by a massive 18.5 points in this game. This is on ABC primetime, 7:30 p.m. Man, this game lost some luster thanks to last week, didn't it? Penn State, what in the hell was that? I've already covered my thoughts on last week's game pretty much in full. And yeah, this point spread pretty much reflects exactly what happened there. If you would have told me that Sean Clifford was back for Penn State and they still managed to lose to Illinois, that's a massive red flag for this team right now. Now, the only thing I can see for Penn State right now in them winning this game, because I think there's worlds where they win this game. There's not many of them, but I think there's worlds where they win this game. Sean Clifford's got to play the game of his life. You got to pray that Ohio State still hasn't figured out their D-line and their rushing defense. And even a guy like CJ Verdell was able to run over 200 yards on them. Hopefully Penn State can find one guy that they can ride on for this game. Again, you're shaking your head at me, Xavier. I get it. I'm speaking crazy over here, but I'm saying this is the world I think that it takes for Penn State to pull this upset. Sean Clifford has to have the game of their life. They got to pray that Ohio State hasn't figured things out on defense with their rushing ability. They're not even at home, so that's not playing well for them. And you just have to hope that last week, them losing to Illinois was because they were so focused on preparing for this Ohio State game, and they thought they could just sleepwalk through that Illinois game. And they got some things put up their sleeve that they are ready to just absolutely pounce Ohio State with. That, to me, is the path to an upset for Penn State here. Slowing Ohio State down will also be very key to that. We saw last week that the rushing defense for Penn State gave up over 200 or 300 yards on the ground to Illinois. That definitely doesn't bode well for them this week. I'm trying to describe a path for Penn State to pull the upset here because we all know why Ohio State's favored in this game. They're probably the number one offense in the country. But yeah, I have to roll with Ohio State. As much as I'll root for Penn State probably in this game, I got to roll with Ohio State with the win here.
Yeah, I'm going to Ohio State as well. I just, you're saying in that world where Penn State could pull this off, Sean Clifford had the game of his life. His best game so far this season was against Villanova. Yeah, that's not going to work. And then it's like his passing numbers aren't that great. I mean, in terms of like competing with Ohio State, you'd have to go bar for bar with Ohio State, which you definitely have receivers, but not like Ohio State. They have just their starting 3 wide receivers. They're automatically just better than you. And then going down the depth chart, I can't even name you the 4th or 5th wide receiver for Penn State. So, and then with the running back room, if you even trust one guy, I don't think that would be enough to run all over Ohio State. CJ Verdell, as much as like we give him flack for the past few years of inconsistency, I mean, he wasn't a bad running back. He showed flashes of why he was starting at Oregon. Nobody has showed me a flash of why they should be starting at Penn State running back. I haven't seen it. I think that's why they're probably going out there and trying to frantically recruit for that next guy to be the next Saquon or anything like that.
Singleton, looking at him next year.
Yeah, so I don't see it as a possibility of what you could do. I mean, Ohio State, from what I've seen over the past few weeks, they have been banged up, but ever since they got back in the Big Ten play and after that Oregon loss and after that close game with Tulsa, they've been hitting on all the courts, holding great offenses to less than 20 points and things like that. That Maryland win was very, very interesting for me because I was like,
Maryland looks like they can't put up points on anybody now that crab season's over.
Yeah, so I was like, and once you got in the Big Ten, but I was like, man, I mean, they had some.
And then last week
with the Moss going down, that kind of sucks as well too.
I mean, but last week they played against Indiana, who was without Michael Penix. Jack Tuttle gets benched in that game, so then now Indiana's down to like their third, and I think they played their fourth string quarterback in that game. They were just banged up to the point where they couldn't do anything on offense. No, again, give you credit, holding anybody to 7 points is still a difficult task, no matter who you're going up against. So props to Ohio State there. But even still, like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I think that Ohio State's figured things out on defense that they were having troubles with against like Minnesota and Oregon earlier this season. I don't think that's what's happened. Now, I do think this offense is clicking more because even against lesser competition, they were struggling earlier in the year. But now it seems like against lesser competition, they'll run up the score on you without a second thought.
Oh yeah, and I think that's just what's going to kill the morale for Penn State. Once the scores just run up, there's no point. I mean, you're not going to be able to come back within scoring distance or anything like that, like a one-score game. And after that, I mean, Ohio State can just have your way with you. Like your running backs aren't that dynamic to run for over 100 yards. I don't think any of them have run over 100 yards so far this season.
I can agree. I can agree with you that if Ohio State jumps on Penn State early in this game, it can kill that morale very quickly for Penn State. But I think if you get to the half and this game's like 14-14 or 17-14 or something like that, hell, even if it's 21-14 and Penn State just can feel like they can score on Ohio State when they need to, maybe break off a big pass play or two, I can see this game getting interesting pretty quickly. But like,
so how many yards do you think Sean Clifford needs to throw for this game to be close or either get that upset? I'm gonna tell you right now, my number is 350. If Penn State wants to win this game, he has to throw over 350 yards.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That's kind of the number that popped into my head as well. I'll be maybe kind and say just 300.
He still hasn't done it yet so far.
I know.
He had that one game against Villanova, but
I
that's
know.
Villanova. They're a basketball school, so you would.
I didn't even know they had a football team at this point.
Exactly. So I was like, look, the game of his life. Yeah, that's an understatement. You haven't even done over 300 this season, so.
Yeah, again, I laid all that out there knowing for the fact that I'm picking Ohio State, and I know for a fact you're picking Ohio State to win this game, but I wanted people to make it feel like that we're not going to just chalk this one up. I feel like there is worlds where Penn State can win this game because, again, Penn State has looked like a good football team several times this year. And if they play 100% and maybe Ohio State plays like a B- game, yeah, I could see an upset with Penn State here. Even a B game. But yeah, we'll move on. So those are our 3 helmet games of the week, ranked v ranked matchups. You'll see us cover those again on the recap episode next week, but we'll go ahead. Let's move on to our additional games of interest. Let me just write something down here. And we can go. All right, first game we got on here. A lot of great Big Ten matchups this week. Some definitely teams that we're definitely rethinking now that we've seen them perform in some other games. And I think it's perfectly encapsulated in this next matchup. We got number 9, Iowa at Wisconsin. Wisconsin favored by 3 points on ESPN. This is the noon game. So Xavier, you go first.
Yeah. Iowa's gonna have to pass the ball this game because you're not rushing on Wisconsin at all. And Spencer Petras, I don't trust you throwing the football. You're only completing 59% of your passes, and it's not even that impressive to where you're only throwing for it's at 1,300 yards so far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean 1,300 yards, and you're throwing 9 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So not the greatest quarterback for Iowa. And your greatest receiver is probably your tight end, and it is Sam Laporta. And I do think he's talented because Iowa produces talented tight ends, but that's not going to be enough to beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin's going to run the ball all over you. I don't trust Graham Mertz. I don't really care for Graham Mertz, but with that backfield of Ches Malusi and Braylon Allen running all over you, getting a lot of attempts to where either way, it's whoever has the hot hand so far this season. Like a lot of people like Braylon Allen a lot more because he's seen to step up as a true freshman. But Ches Malusi still has shown, even this past week where he got the majority of the carries, that it can be a split backfield and they can work with that system to win games. I think Iowa has gotten exposed to where, in previous weeks they relied on turnovers like you've mentioned, and they've won a lot of close games and a lot of blowouts where, maybe a lot of people thought they were going to be upsets. But Yeah, that's only in the secondary though. You're getting a lot of turnovers and interceptions, but if Wisconsin's not throwing the ball, so you're going to have to cause a lot of fumbles if you want things to go right. If you want to beat Wisconsin, and you're going to have to be able to throw the ball efficiently and effectively. So I'm taking Wisconsin this game, and it's at Wisconsin. So and at noon, oh, those fans are going to be hip hop hooraying. And what's that thing they did do in the fourth quarter? Is it the jump around song?
Oh, do they do jump around at Wisconsin for fourth quarter?
Yeah,
So let me look something up here real quick. But even still, you're right 100% that if Iowa State or Iowa State, why did I do? I did that yesterday. I'm doing it again. So Iowa, this is gonna be a very interesting game because, like you said, Iowa's not running the ball on Wisconsin. Wisconsin's the number one rushing defense in the country, and Wisconsin's good at rushing the ball. However, Iowa is the number 7 rushing defense in the country. This is strength on strength going up against for these two teams, and I think both of these teams are going to have to be forced to pass in certain points during this game. I don't trust Spencer Petras. I do not trust Graham Mertz either. Here's the thing, though. I trust Iowa's ability to turn turnovers into points. Wisconsin has not really shown a huge ability to do that. They haven't really shown an ability to generate turnovers. So I'm actually, for once, going to roll with Iowa here. I think Iowa, this is the perfect setup for them. You got a quarterback that is good at throwing turnovers, as we saw at the end of Notre Dame. You got 2 rushing defenses. I think both of these running backs are going to have a hard time throughout this day. That's why I'm not starting them in any of my leagues. I think it's going to be an extremely low-scoring game. Wouldn't be surprised if this is under 20 points for both of these teams by the end of the day. In addition to that, I did pick Iowa to win the Big Ten West, and let's be honest, if they're going to do that, they got to win this game. So I'm going to roll with them. I'm rolling with Iowa.
okay.
All right, let's move on to our second game. And Xavier, I believe, actually, no, I get to start this one.
Yeah, you do.
That's unfortunate for you because I could see you going on a roll with this one. All right.
I won't get too deep into it.
So when Xavier and I talk Georgia football, by the way, this is number 1 Georgia, 14-point favorite versus Florida. You can find 14.5. You can find 13.5 some places. Regardless, Georgia's about a two touchdown favorite versus Florida. This is the CBS 3:30 game of the week. So when Xavier and I talk Georgia football, usually I'm like the optimistic one, and Xavier will kind of try to bring me back down to earth a lot sometimes and be like, Jared, remember, there's always that one game and everything. You never know what's going to come. And I'm like, no, we got this. There's one game this year that I have circled the entire time that I've been worried the hell about. No matter how much I watch Florida screw up game after game this year. They've lost 3 times. Once to Bama, okay, whatever. Lots of teams are going to lose to Bama. Not a lot of teams are only going to lose to them by 2 points. So, they lost, but, somewhat impressive loss. Then you lose to Kentucky. Well, Kentucky's a good team. And they might finish second in the East now. So, maybe somewhat. Then you lose to LSU, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, okay, so Florida's looking like a bad football team at this point. They look undisciplined. They can't figure out their quarterback situation. That's definitely more on the coach than it is the players. And so there's every reason to believe that Georgia is going to absolutely roll in this game. And I'm picking Georgia to win because I'm a Georgia Bulldog, and I'm going to say Georgia's going to win every game until the national championship. But this game's going to be more uncomfortable than I think a lot of Georgia fans are going to anticipate, and I am going to be happily proven wrong, hopefully. So, Xavier, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, I had this game circled as like probably our most important game of the year. Besides, if we make it to the FCC championship, I think this game determines that. I'll say this: the only reason I was being pessimistic for the up to this point is because I didn't want us to just directly look ahead to Florida. I saw some teams out there that could, they were coming along, they were looking decent, and I was like, if we look past them, it could get real ugly for Georgia, and I'll be disappointed again. So far, Kirby Smart has learned from his mistakes of the past and has his players on the right track. And I think this is the big game we've all been looking for since last year. It wasn't an embarrassing loss, but we all understand the context of injuries, what happened with Georgia. But nonetheless, Florida still won, and it's a rivalry game, so we want our revenge. I think for this game, it will be tricky a little bit, probably a little bit more trickier than we have to do. But I think it's the only reason it's going to be tricky is because I don't know who's going to be thrown at a quarterback. I don't know if you're going to do 50-50 split. Are you going to do first half Emory Jones or like a few plays Emory Jones, a few plays Anthony Richardson? But I think overall, that doesn't matter if our D line is clicking. If we can get to the quarterback each and every time or we're getting turnovers and sacks, that doesn't matter to any team in the nation. If you can hit the quarterback before you can release the ball or take off, then that's fine. Now,
Mm.
I think both quarterbacks being a dynamic of, being probably the most mobile, but we said that about KJ Jefferson as well too. But he's a big guy. These are a little bit smaller guys,
And
a
Will
lot more
Levis, I'll
fast.
point out.
Will Levis too, to some extent. He's definitely good in that rushing game. But these are two guys to where their strengths. I mean, well, especially with Emory Jones, his strength is not passing the football. Anthony Richardson has the talent to improve his passing game, but for now, his value is in his legs, and I think Georgia knows that. I'm still a little bit skeptical about our secondary, as you all know. I mean, we have some great pieces. We've seen them make mistakes sometimes. They've obviously improved each and every game, but they haven't been tested. We've been able to shut down one receiver. I know on the Ankle Biters podcast, Jared, you mentioned that we're going against a lot of receivers that could probably make a look like maybe just more than one. I would say
Mm-hmm.
that Florida has a lot, but you have Jacob Copeland, you have Shorter, you have
Justin
Zipper.
Shorter.
So you have just a different guys that have different skill sets, which can be a little bit of curveball and it could get a little bit annoying. But overall, I trust our defense. Whoever starts at quarterback, I'm fine with. I'm cool with rolling into that game. Last year we did have Dewan Mathis, then we put in Stetson Bennett late, but Stetson
Well,
Bennett has been balling.
Stetson started
Oh
against
yeah,
Florida last year, got
and they
hurt,
got
then
hurt.
Dwan came in, and then we threw Stetson back out there because Dwan was doing so rough.
Yeah, so I mean, Stetson does look a lot more improved this year to where the Stetson of last year. I mean, he still did, decent for what he did last year, but now I'm having a little bit more higher expectations of like Stetson. I know you can win games and manage games correctly if JT is healthy. JT, it's been a while since you played. You're gonna have to get your reps back in. You're gonna have to take your lumps. Hopefully that you're durable and that you make it out of this game unscathed. So that's all I really have to say. Hopefully I didn't take up too much time, but yeah, I have Georgia taking this game.
I'll take Georgia as well. Again, I want to be optimistic, y'all, but again,
Yeah,
if you know just the life of a Georgia fan or just Atlanta fans in general, you want to be happy, but it's one of those things where you got to believe it until you see it.
exactly.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next game. We got a ACC matchup here. Two unranked teams. It is the Disappointment Bowl, and I guess one's been a disappointment for a while, but we got Florida State at Clemson. Clemson a 10-point favorite here. This is a 3:30 game on ESPN. Xavier, you go first. What do you got?
Yeah. I remember I saw this game looking ahead to week 9, and I was like looking at it and I was like, am I really gonna think about taking Florida State in the technical upset? And because Clemson's favored by 10 points in this game, which is shocking because you just benched DJ. The QB battle's wide open, but the backup, whose name I still can't pronounce because I just found out. Like I knew he was on the roster, but I never thought he would ever get in a Clemson game unless DJ was balling out for 3.5 quarters.
Xavier's now angry because he just figured out how to say Uyagalele, and now he's got to figure out a whole new quarterback.
Yeah, has an African last name. I think his first name is like PJ or something like that. It's shortened, but it's very complicated. But whoever's out there, I mean, you have nothing going for you. You have no weapons that can get open. I mean, Florida State's terrible at defense, but I don't know what your receivers are going to do in this game to where, I mean, everybody seemed to has pulled your card this season. It's going to be interesting. I think a few running backs have been able to expose Clemson's D line a little bit, little by little, but that's because the defense is on the field more than the offense, so they're getting tired.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Corbin may just have like a grimy game to where he has to just crank out 2-yard runs until he finally breaks off for a big one and gets a touchdown. I don't know what Florida State's going to do. Jordan Travis may start running around and get some long gains as well. But for Clemson, it's just all about like, what is your offense going to do? Will Shipley's coming back from injury. He didn't look so great against Syracuse. So I mean, we're just going to have to see if like, all right, do I go with the talent or do I go based off of what I've seen so far from both of these teams? I think I'm gonna have to go with, you know what? It's surprisingly, I'm gonna have to go with Florida State over Clemson. I did not think I would be saying that in 2021.
Xavier. You basically were speaking out of my mouth just now in terms of just like the thought process. Because I put out a tweet when I first saw this line come out, and I was just like, am I a horrible person for thinking about taking Florida State in the points here? Because like basically, so to tell you about Clemson's offense here, they're in rare company right now. Xavier, there are two Power 5 programs. Actually, these might be just FBS programs in general. 2 FBS programs that have not been able to score over 20 points in regulation. Clemson is one of them. Arizona is the other. That is the company that Clemson's offense is currently sitting with, and they're favored by 10 points in this game. So, what are these odd makers expecting? Clemson to hold Florida State to 7 points? Absolutely not. Florida State's a lot of things, but they can put up some points when they need to. And like you said, Clemson's defense just being put out there too often, getting worn down, injuries starting to bite them a little bit more. Florida State, they get 20 points in this game. They win this game. Again, Clemson really just has shown an ability, even with Will Shipley back, just they can't get anything going in this game. And it's at Clemson, so that's helping them out a little bit. But this is where Clemson hits rock bottom, I think. I think Florida State wins this game. Yeah. I think that this is going to be a shockwave in the ACC if Florida State's able to pull this off. And you know what? I think it happens. Give me Florida State to win this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge win for Norvell, and see if he wants to keep his job after this season.
Oh, Norvell's keeping his job after this season, in my opinion. Some bad losses in there, but I think Florida State knows they have to keep the same guy around for a couple of years unless things just get really, really bad after year 2.
Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and look at our 4th game we got here. We got number 19 SMU at Houston. I believe it is my turn to start off the preview, and we will do just that. So this one's interesting to me because SMU is undefeated. They're ranked, and they're really the game that people are looking at the end of Cincinnati's schedule and saying that's Cincinnati's statement moment right before the final playoff poll comes out. Well, actually, no, the final one comes out after the conference championships. But even so, this is a big statement win for Cincinnati. If Cincinnati is able to blow out a ranked SMU team that I think is going to be big in the eyes of the committee going into those final weeks. However, SMU's got to get past Houston, and Houston has quietly had one of the best passing defenses in the country. Now, it really comes down to strength on strength and week on week here. Houston's offense definitely leaves a lot to be desired, but so does SMU's defense. So it comes down to both the question of who do you trust more, Houston's offense or SMU's defense, as well as who do you trust more, SMU's passing attack, which is really a crux of a lot of their offense, or Houston's defense, which is good against the pass and the pass and the rush. So Xavier, I'll let you kind of speak here. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I know you mentioned to me a while back that Houston was sneakily having a good defense, and they are ranked 12th in passing yards allowed. They are in great company, I believe. But I've seen teams put up points on them. I think ECU was a great example of like you put up 24 points.
Well, that went to overtime. Well,
that went to overtime. What did it?
No, you're right. They put up 24 in regulation.
Yeah. So they put up 24 in regulation. Then Tulane was able to put up 22. And then besides that, you've just been blowing everybody out. Navy was able to put up 20, but Navy's been throwing in curveballs for weird teams at different times. So, I mean, I think SMU is just that dynamic of an offensive. Like, you have a lot of playmakers at that wide receiver position. I am concerned. I haven't read the news recently of what's going on with Ulysses Bentley, but Trey Siggers is a good running back. Mm-hmm. I don't take anything away, but I think Ulysses Bentley was obviously that better back. But Trey Siggers has come in that role of, holding his own and keeping that run game alive and getting SMU in good field position for Tanner Mordecai to make plays. So ultimately, I just trust Tanner Mordecai to understand the magnitude of this game and to win this game overall. I think they have the receivers in Danny Gray, Rashee Rice, Reggie Roberson, and Grant Calcaterra. I mean, I don't think Houston has faced that like arsenal of weapons to, you've gone against some good teams with some clear number one receivers. And then after that, their depth drops off. With SMU, it's just solid and across the board, across the line. So I'm going to go with SMU in this one.
I think I'm going to go SMU as well, but from a fantasy perspective, I know Matt Corral's been incredible for everybody. I know that these SMU receivers have definitely been a lot of fun, just safe floor picks every single week. I will bench every single one of them for this game. If SMU wins this game, it is going to be in a 24-21 kind of way. I think Houston will be able to slow down that offense somewhat, and they're definitely not crossing the 30-point margin, so you can find a lot better options out there. But I will take SMU to win this game in the technical upset because Houston is favored. Okay, let us move on to our next game. We got UNC at Notre Dame. Notre Dame being the 3.5-point favorite here. This is on NBC, 7:30 p.m. game. Xavier, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this is an interesting game. UNC in bounce back games, Sam Howell looks great. And then the news of Cal Hamilton going down for Notre Dame really takes a blow to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, Notre Dame's identity, like Cal Hamilton played a huge role in that defense. But I think Notre Dame is just coached well defensively that, they'll be able to cover, maybe, possibly. I think I'll favor them covering in this game and winning this game.
Okay.
But it's definitely going to be an interesting game to where at the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season that we saw, where it was looking like Notre Dame was going to come down and then just completely thrash UNC because UNC has looked piss poor. But Ty Chandler has looked a lot better. Sam Howell and Josh Downs are probably the most, well, I'd say mostly Josh Downs has been probably the most consistent piece of that offense in terms of fantasy. And Sam Howell has shown that he can have big games. I don't know though with his O-line if how many opportunities he's going to be able to find points, but he has been rushing a lot more. So I do like that dual ability of him, running the football because he's run over 100 yards a few times so far this season. So it might be another case this game as well too. And it may be some garbage time points in there as well. So Sam Howell in this game might be able to put up a decent stat line at the end.
Yeah. So the big
Notre Dame.
You're going to take Notre Dame? All right. I mostly gut feeling here, but I'm going to take UNC to win this game because I believe that when UNC's offense gets hot, they can get hot. Now, Notre Dame was able to shut down UNC quite impressively, I might add, last year, especially in the second half. They shut them out in the second half. And a lot of that had to do with Notre Dame being able to take away UNC's rushing game. You had Michael Carter, Javonte Williams. That was an incredible feat by them. And let's be honest, Ty Chandler, as great as he has been, is not Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. But Xavier, you touched on this. UNC was not running Sam Howell last year. In their game last year, Sam Howell had 11 carries for 2 yards. A lot of that had to do with the fact that 6 of those carries came from 6 sacks delivered by Notre Dame's defense. Now, I think they'll be able to do that again. However, I think there will be several calls in this game where Sam Howell is expected to scramble for some yards, and I think he'll be able to keep more drives alive in this game. I actually expect this game to be a relatively higher scoring game compared to last year, so I could see both teams crossing that 25-30 margin. And I think SMU is going to have just enough firepower, especially like I said, or like you said, Kyle Hamilton, he's out. That's a big ball hawk that's going to not allow UNC to turn the ball over as much out for this game. So I'm going to go, again, gut feel here. I feel like UNC gets hot in this game, gets some revenge for last year, and they pull off the upset.
Yeah, okay.
So let me just write down our picks real quick, make sure we got...
I'll just mention, as a counter argument, I think Chris Tyree and Kyra Williams are going to have great days and going to be able to put up a lot of points.
Again, that's why I don't expect this game to be won by Jack Cohn. I expect Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree to have their way, but I also expect this to be one of Sam Howell's great days.
Okay.
Sam Howell, I think, has something to prove. I think he wants to be in that first-round conversation next year. A lot of people doubting him right now. This is the perfect opportunity to take down a ranked Notre Dame team.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll hit up our last game here, and that's going to be Fresno State at number 21, San Diego State University. I believe it is my turn to go first. So let me get this down real quick. All right. So I mentioned this one on the Ankle Biters podcast. I just consider it one of my more interesting games of the week because this is two teams playing for a division title right here. Fresno State really in most games that they played this year have looked very impressive. Again, Wyoming held them to 17 points, but they held Wyoming to 3 points, so I think that was pretty impressive. They were able to win in a different way. And then their one loss comes to Hawaii, where they had to travel 3 hours out of their time zone in order to play at Hawaii. So I imagine jet lag had something to do there. You often find a lot of these Mountain West teams struggle when they have to travel to Hawaii, and vice versa. You see Hawaii struggle when they have to come to the mainland. They're playing at San Diego State University, undefeated San Diego State University. They're playing at home. San Diego State's a 1-point favorite here. This is a late night game, 10:30 p.m. And San Diego State's defense is getting a lot of praise, and Fresno State's offense is getting a ton of praise as well. And that's definitely going to be the strength on strength here. But I think it'll be decided on the other side of the ball. Fresno State's defense at times can be exploited, and other times they are able to just completely shut down offenses, especially these run-first offenses like we saw against Wyoming. So I think I'm going to take Fresno State here. I think they just have the more talented players. I think that they're able to create some more explosive plays, and I think they'll win this game and in the process take control of the Mountain West division.
Yeah, this game is very interesting. Fresno State has not looked the greatest offensively these past few weeks. There is concerns about Jake Heiner and Jalen Cropper. I think it was after that. What was the game that he took the big hit and came back and won the game?
UCLA.
Yeah. So ever since that game, they haven't just looked right. Nothing's been clicking for them on offense. They've been able to squeak by, some good wins in the Mountain West, but nothing too convincingly as what we once thought, early on in the season. And San Diego State's defense looked really good. They're, I think, 31st and against the pass, which is still top 50 for a Mountain West team is pretty good. So I'll give them their props there. I think it's definitely Fresno State definitely has the better quarterback. But San Diego State, they're built on their run game, Greg Bell. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game in terms of how close.
Who I believe might actually be questionable for this game.
Ooh, if he's not in, then that changes a little bit. I'll leave an open. I'll say for now, I believe San Diego State will win. But if Greg Bell doesn't play, then I think I should have the right to change my.
I will grant you that. I will grant you that. Alrighty, so those are our additional games of interest. Now we're going to move on to our over-under games of the week. This is where we talk about these big fantasy games. If you're struggling to decide who you want to start in each of these games, definitely take a look at these guys. So let me just write this down. We'll move on to our first one. We're going to specifically talk a lot about players here. So the first one we got up here, we got Hawaii at Utah State. Utah State, a 6-point favorite. This is not on any television. Stations that we are aware of. And it's at 3:00, and the over/under on it is 65. So Xavier, who are you looking at in this game? Who are you starting?
I'll definitely start Calvin Turner, Jr. in this game for Hawaii. Siobhan Cordero as well. But besides that, maybe Day Hunter as well too for Hawaii. It's Utah State, they're defensively challenged. So I mean, those are the two names that I would probably. Those are three names I'd probably look out for. I'd probably have a lot more faith in Calvin Turner because as we've seen from a lot of his highlights and how he scores against defensively challenged teams, he just finds a way to escape pressure when there's like 5 guys on him, run the opposite way of the field, and find his way in the end zone. So I think, he doesn't always have to have those type of theatrics because sometimes he can get really good yards in the passing game, but also really good yards in the run game as well too. And I think he's probably the best receiver by far for that Hawaii offense. And if Cordero can show his rushing ability as well too, then that's a good game for him. I'll let you take the Utah State side. No, there's
one
2 guys.
Well, really one guy here that I'm really going to push here, and that's Devin Tompkins, the wide receiver. Hawaii's got the 127th passing defense in the country. This dude is going to go absolutely bananas in this game. If you want to, because of that rough passing defense, Logan Bonner, probably a great start here if you're struggling at quarterback. And Xavier, did you have somebody else you wanted to mention?
No, I was going to say Logan Bonner.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'm like, is there anybody else really? Because you can go and find other pieces on this offense that if you really want to, if you're really struggling, just look at the starting wide receivers for Utah State. But yeah, you covered the Hawaii side pretty well. Those are the guys I would really be looking forward to. Calvin Turner, Day Hunter again, and then God, what was his name from last week? Hold on, he went off last week. It was, where was he at? Went against New Mexico State. He, Mr. Parson, Dedrick Parson, running back for them. He had in this game 25 carries for 161 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he was getting more carries than Calvin Turner was.
Yeah. Ooh, man, Day Hunter wasn't out there. Maybe he's hurt. I didn't know. It's hard to keep up with Hawaii out there all alone on that island.
And then you can also throw in Nick Marner here, a wide receiver for Hawaii. I think he's used enough in the passing game and different trick plays and stuff like that he's absolutely worth taking a look at here.
Yeah. Ooh, man, Dedrick Parsons has some good yards in the passing game as well, too. Yeah, it might be a guy.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at our next game here. We got Texas Tech University at number 4, Oklahoma. Oklahoma, a 17.5 point favorite. This is a 3:30 game on ESPN. Over-under on this game, 67.5. Pretty much the guys you're looking at here for Oklahoma. I'm not trusting any Oklahoma wide receiver. If you're going to play them, you play them as a flyer on your flex. See what happens. He's definitely not going to be guys you want to rely on because it just goes back and forth who gets the targets every single week. But put in Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to have a field day against this Texas Tech defense. Last week, notwithstanding, of course, like they went against a bad defense last week and things went wrong. I have a feeling to get a lot of that fixed this week. Caleb Williams has a great day. And then I'm also going to put down Kennedy Brooks, because Kennedy Brooks clearly has taken the number 1 back role for Oklahoma. Eric Gray has a good play here and now, but again, he's like the receivers where I don't trust him to give me production every week. And so, Xavier, anybody on Texas Tech side that you want to throw out there?
They just started their coach, so that's going to look terrible for them. So I think, the game plan probably for them is just to run Sarajic Thompson to the ground. And I think with Oklahoma's inability to make tackles, it might bode well for him. So yeah, let's just say Sarajic Thompson. I'm expecting, in the past few weeks, he's only gotten maybe like 10 plus carries. Highest I've seen is 18 against TCU. This might be one of those games where he needs 18 to 20. So I'm expecting a big day from Sarajic because Oklahoma, they can't tackle for expletive. So yeah, I'll the only start I would have on Texas Tech is Sarajic Thompson.
I'm going to throw Eric Ezukama out there as well. Oklahoma's passing defense definitely has been beaten and battered. I believe Josh Pate the other day, he said that only one player in Oklahoma's secondary is playing in the same position that he started out at fall camp in. You got a lot of guys learning their position. So Eric Ezukama, I think, could break open for a couple of good plays there. And I believe Kalen Geiger is their other wide receiver that's kind of transferred from Troy. He's kind of built himself up this year. So definitely, I think you could play him.
The only thing I have against Eric Ezukama is that for this year so far, he's kind of his values in his legs running the football because he only has 1 receiving touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns, and those 2 rushing were in the last 2 games. So they're finding plays for him, but ever since you fire your head coach, hopefully it still kept the play. Hopefully he left the playbook behind. So we'll see.
Absolutely. All right, we'll move on to the next one. We got FIU at Marshall. So Xavier, you start us off. Who you taking? Who you starting?
Yeah, I guess I'll take the Marshall side of with Marshall. They're a great rushing team. So Rasheen Ali, obviously a good start. Grant Wells, dual threat quarterback, kind of takes a lot of those goal line carries away from Rasheen, but Rasheen still gets his work, so he'll still be productive. And yeah, for Marshall receivers, God, I always get this wrong. Is Gamage on Charlotte or Marshall?
Sorry, what was that?
Is Corey Gamage, does he play for Charlotte or Marshall? 2 green teams. We always mess up.
I believe he plays for Marshall.
Okay, then Corey Gamage, tight end, I'll go with Xavier Gaines, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So yeah, those 2 guys in the passing attack as well. So there's 4 players you can put against FIU against this game. I think it's deserving of over 65 points in the over under, and Marshall is heavily favored. So there will be a lot of points and a lot of opportunities for these guys to put up touchdowns and just yards in general.
All right, I'll take the other side of this. We got FIU players, and I'm going to tell you guys I don't trust them in this game. Marshall's a 21.5-point favorite in this game for a reason, so I don't see FIU putting up a ton of points in this game. And Marshall, I believe, is in the top 10, if not definitely the top 15 in terms of passing defense. So I don't expect Max Bordenschlager to have the great day that he normally has. Tyrese Chambers, Bryce Singleton, those guys probably would just want to sit them for this week. And Devontae Price really hasn't been that impressive the last couple of weeks anyway, so you probably aren't going to want to start him either way. So there's really not much on the FIU side I'm really comfortable with recommending this week.
Yeah, that's understandable. Marshall is ranked 11th against the pass.
Appreciate that.
To clarify, yeah.
So, yep, we'll go ahead and move on to our next one. We got Duke at Wake Forest. I'll go ahead and take the Wake Forest side of things as soon as I get this done. All right, Wake Forest. We saw what they did against Army last week. Once that offense gets hot and rolling, oh boy, it's fantasy points galore. And again, your guys are going to want to be Sam Hartman, quarterback. A.T. Perry, we've been hyping him up as one of our waiver wire picks the past couple of weeks. Absolutely start him. Ja'Kerry Roberson, looks like he's finally out of that touchdown drought. They're going to be getting the ball to him. Christian Beal-Smith, if you're looking for a guy to start at the flex at running back or even just a running back for 1 week, I think he's a good play in this game. He definitely can run the ball into the end zone a couple of times. So yeah, those are my guys at Wake Forest. Xavier, who are you looking at on Duke?
Yeah, I'm going to only just limit it to one guy, and that's Mateo Durant. I know Gunnar Holmberg has been this dual threat guy for the whole season, but I did not like their game against Virginia before the bye week 2 weeks ago. They got shut out completely.
Yeah.
And Wake Forest is no slouch either. If you can't put up points against Virginia, I don't see you putting up that many points against Wake Forest, Wake Forest is not like the greatest defensive team, but they've shown to be the more consistent in the ACC so far. And Mateo Durant, he still was able to have 17 carries and 82 yards. So I think those are opportunity and chances for him to break off for, a few good runs and maybe find himself in the end zone. So that's the only one I would personally, okay. Wow.
You okay?
Yeah. I'm glad you couldn't hear that then. Had ESPN just ringing in my headphones, and I was like, let's hope they can't hear that. But yeah.
Nope, we can't hear that.
So yeah, I'd only just have Mateo Durant in this game for the possibility and the opportunities of him putting up points.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of agree with you. Gunnar Holmberg, he was nice for like a week or two there, but then things just kind of quickly fell off the rails for them. If I had to recommend a wide receiver for Duke, it was going to be probably Jake Bobo. But Bobo will probably go bye-bye for this week until we see him get going again. So, yeah. I'm feeling you on the Duke side of things. Let's go ahead and hit up this next game. We got... let me just do this. All right, we got the next game here. Charlotte at Western Kentucky. Xavier, you go first on this one.
Yeah, I'll take the Western Kentucky side. They're favored by -18. Yeah, start everybody except for their backfield. Honestly, Bailey Zappi has looked like one of the scariest quarterbacks in college football fantasy that we've seen over every single week. He's just consistent of like 29 plus points. That's just a bad game for him, which is really, really scary. Malachi Corley, wide receiver 2, if you want to not even wide receiver 2. It's just more of like, who do you want to call wide receiver 2 for Western Kentucky, because everybody's getting love. Mitchell Tinsley, and obviously the big man, Jarrett Stearns. He's gonna get a touchdown every game. It's almost the same thing about Breece Hall. If there's 3 things that are guaranteed in life: depth, taxes, and Jarrett Stearns getting in the end zone. So. Yeah, basically that's all I can really say for Western Kentucky. I'll leave you to the Charlotte side. I know I'm really intrigued about who would put out there, because I know West Kentucky's passing defense is piss poor.
Well, as you mentioned, their passing defense is piss poor, so I have to imagine that Chris Reynolds is going to have one of these up games that he's usually that he was known for at the beginning of the season. He's kind of died down a little bit since then, putting up about 20, 25 points a game. But man, he can hit that. When he hits that high, he can get you about 30, 35, maybe even 40 points if he's having a real good day. And he's got 2 pretty good options at receiver. He's got Victor Tucker and he's got Grant Dubose. Their rushing game is leaving a lot to be desired, so I have a feeling they're going to be putting a shootout with Wake Forest in this game. Now, Wake Forest is favored by 18, so obviously even Vegas doesn't expect them to keep up with Western Kentucky. But even so, they're going to be forced into that situation. So I expect some big games out of Chris Reynolds. I expect some big games out of Grant DuBose and Victor Tucker. I'm not going to recommend anybody in their backfield. It's been running back by committee all season.
Yeah, I would agree as well too. It's just I only had the concerns of like Chris Reynolds hasn't been what he's shown to be in that first few weeks of the season. So I do believe that he will have a nice little shootout game with
if there's a bounce back game for him, this is it.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit this last one real quick, and then we can all go home. We're gonna hit Arkansas State at University of South Alabama. I almost said Southern Alabama.
Something first?
Go ahead.
I would like to say these are two of the worst passing defenses in the nation. They rank in that like bottom quartile of like 110 to 130.
So Xavier, are you saying start everybody? Everybody. Start everybody.
Now, I will say for Arkansas State, hopefully Lane Hatcher is not announced the starter because I really don't understand what Butch Jones is doing. I really think he needs to be fired at Arkansas State because they looked a lot better.
They've been there 1 year.
I don't care. He's just the offense is not the same as what it once was last year and the years before. So that's the only thing. I'll let you comment on the players of whichever team you want to choose.
I do get to go first now here, don't I? So I'm going to take Arkansas State side here, and like Xavier and I were just joking. Start everybody. Don't start anybody in the Arkansas State backfield because that's a joke. But again, Lane Hatcher, he's starting quarterback. Start him. Honestly, again, Xavier, as much as you're giving crap for James Blackman, if he starts, start him. They're going to be putting up some points regardless. You got the big three wide receivers for Arkansas State right now. You got DeValence Hunt, you got Jeff Foreman, you got Corey Rucker. All of those guys I think are going to be getting some love in this game. Dahu Green, if you're really, really struggling in a deeper league, you could throw him out there as just a big flyer. So those are my guys for Arkansas State. Who are you looking at in South Alabama?
Yeah, I guess I'll start off with Jake Bentley. In the past 2 games, he's thrown over 300 yards. Probably even 350. And then for the receivers, Jalen Tolbert. I know people have been waiting. He's having a good season. He's almost at 1,000 yards. Probably like 1 or 2 more big games away. But he just couldn't find the end zone early part of the season. But now that he's getting into a lot of these softer games where the passing defenses are terrible, he's able to find the end zone. If you're really trying to go for any more receivers for that South Alabama team, Jalen Lane. I
was about to mention him.
Yeah, and then Colin Lacey are the 2 guys, next guys in leading receptions with 29 and 27. So that's all I can really say. And then Lincoln Suffolk, I think if I'm Sefcik, let's go with Sefcik. I think that's the proper pronunciation.
Is that their tight end?
Touchdowns. Yes, their tight end. He's finding the end zone. He's has 3 touchdowns on the year. I think that's good for a tight end. And if they're able to find him in this game where passing defense sucks, might as well.
Absolutely. I'm not going to argue with that. All right, so that leads us to the end of our show in terms of our full-on content. Now we just have to hit up some housekeeping notes before we get out of here. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning into the show. And Xavier, I usually do all the plugging. You want to give it a shot?
Sure, yeah, you did it in the intro. Yeah, make sure you follow us on all platforms from Apple Music to Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews on Apple Music because we really appreciate those. It takes about like 5 minutes if you just go through them quick and they only have nice things to say. If you really want to dog us, that's fine too. We take constructive criticism very well over
Absolutely.
Here. Follow us on YouTube. Jared works hard on the graphics to give y'all a nice visual representation of what we're doing, especially with our weekly previews and recaps of waiver wire players that we're looking at. Follow us on Twitter. That's where you can find us mostly. You can hit us up in the DMs. We're open for all questions. I'm CFF_Xavier. He's CFF_Jared. And yeah, I was going to say it twice. I didn't realize how much that you go through. But yeah, don't forget to hit the notification bell for all of our YouTube and just any streaming platform. And then make sure to like and subscribe and leave comments because Jared enjoys the comments. We have our favorites that we see. And that
do
we
you
acknowledge.
Not?
No, I definitely do. I have one listener that I'm just like, I don't like you listening because you always steal my players in our league. So he knows who I'm talking about. I'll leave his name out there. He knows I've said his name before in previous podcasts. But yeah, we appreciate all the love and support that we get. Oh, also check out our ankle biters where we guest.
Absolutely.
that probably just dropped today or either going to drop later on tonight. So it was a fun time with Farnsworth and Owens. Those are two great guys in the industry. It's great to know the whole industry as a whole. We have so many great and talented individuals and groups. So it's just great to have that love and camaraderie between all of us. There's no pecking order of who's right and who's wrong. We all respect each other's opinions. So that's basically all I have to say. Jared, what are your last thoughts?
I think you nailed everything on the head.
Let's go.
The only thing I might put out there is, again, I'll probably send another tweet about this in the next day or so. I am still taking responses on our questionnaire that we're putting out there. Again, if you don't feel comfortable putting things down on the comments section, you want things just to be anonymous, send it there. A lot of the stuff you're seeing changes to the show, the way we talk about things, are coming directly from those responses to the questionnaire. I love hearing feedback from you guys. And again, if you just ever want to throw an idea out there for just content you want to see in the future, hit us up. We are looking for different ways to bring you guys awesome new content, especially after this season is over. We'll have the off season. Just throw ideas at us, y'all. We want to hear every single one of it because we're looking to have a good time as the season goes on. So yeah, with that being said, appreciate y'all tuning in. We kept it just over an hour today, so good on us for keeping things in a timely manner on the Ankle Biters podcast. We pushed them over 2 hours because that's the kind of people that we are. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Y'all have a blessed day.